a slight delay. We seem to have lost Reverend Stokes.
Spirited away.
So the public and press. So first agenda item, prayers, and Councillor Chartman to do the prayers for us.
Thank you, Chairman. A moment of quiet is appropriate. Heavenly Father, we commend our meeting to your consideration this evening. Give us the strength of will and of character to deal with the business promptly, thoroughly, and kindly to one another. Help us to listen rather than to just speak, and help us to make sensible decisions. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So on to agenda item 2, you have to sign the minutes of the last meeting. And item 3, apologies of absence.
Apologies received from councillors Kevin Parker, Mark Bunting, Ian Robertson, Preston Lomax, Sarah Peck and John Williams.
Any others? Thank you. So moving on to item 4. Declaration of members' interest. Any? So chair's announcements. I have more announcements. You probably have seen my diary entries, and there's a few more going in. Just wanted to go to the series of these containers. Okay, so we want item 6. Questions. Proceed with rules 10 and 11. So, firstly, any questions from members of the public? Mr. Paul?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I won't take long. I won't be staying long. We've got more motions than the laxative remedy in this place. Sir, I know Morrison is coming to Daventry. Somewhat smaller than originally planned. Such a downright shame. This is obviously the final nail in the coffin of the retail park, which could have gone ahead for a fraction of the cost of the Site 1 cinema project site, which is without doubt not a candidate for the RIBA, Royal Institute of British Architects, design shortlist. Your answer to my question at last council regarding the North East Zoo, you stated yet again the planning application has been deferred. This to me is suggesting that Barrett's have no intention of starting the project. I suspect they will wait until Daventry becomes an overspill from Northampton. Since the first publication regarding Unitary, the public are still unaware of the latest timeline. My main concern is for the staff who, in your words, Councillor, are second to none, which I totally concur. The question being, after the unitary elections in May 2020, how long will Daventry District Council be in existence? And may I congratulate you, Councillor Miller, for your 10 years exemplary service. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Mr. Paul, thank you very much indeed for that. Actually, it's 20 years, not 10, but I know you weren't never the greatest with numbers, but I'll let you off there.
As the leader.
As the leader, yeah, 20 years. So, and you should know, because you were there. Anyway, Mr. Paul, I'm not going to comment on your observations, but what I will say about your question is this: subject to government's approval, and as we know at the moment, government's got its mind on other things, approval of the structural change order, which we're still anticipating will take place sometime this year. Daventry District Council will continue until the 31st of March 2021.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6.2, questions from members of the council.
Thank you, Chair. Will the leader of the council tell us how Daventry District Council plans to celebrate Local Service Champions Day on the 17th of October? Will there be opportunities on that day, which is being observed across the country, for members to express their appreciation of the work which Daventry District Council staff do in providing services to residents and communities across the district?
Thank you, Chairman. I thank Councillor Ritchie for that question. Local Services Champions Day, for those who don't know, is organised nationally by the trade union Unison to celebrate its members working in local government services. This celebration day is part of their Local Services Champions campaign, which raises the profile of local government workers across Unison. We are aware that some Unison branches around the country are planning various activities with their members, although this council's management team hasn't yet been approached about any plans to mark the event locally on the 17th of October. Our council has a number of staff who are Unison members, and of course we appreciate their excellent efforts, as we always have done, as we do the efforts of every member of staff who works here. We're always supportive of raising the profile of the great work our officers do in providing services to our local communities. Indeed, we also do a lot of work as a council to publicise the many services and projects that our staff provide, not only to inform and engage residents about what's available to them, but to give our officers some deserved public recognition of the hard work that goes into running these. I would suggest to members that expressing appreciation of the work that our staff do isn't just something we should do on a single celebration day. We should be seizing opportunity to do this at all times, to thank them for what they're doing. So it shouldn't be just one day a year. We should be thanking them whenever we see good pieces of work. Then you should be thanking those staff for that good piece of work. Whether it's a quick phone call and email to thank them for something to help with, or posting an encouraging or supporting comments on social media about the work they're doing, these small gestures can go a long way. And these are reported, you may be aware, in the Council Courier that goes round. If members feel they would like to contact officers directly to show their appreciation on the 17th of October, or indeed any other day, then I certainly wouldn't wish to discourage that. We've just been peer reviewed for the first time for workplace wellbeing and awarded embedded status for 6 out of 12 standards. Just to put that into context, we're the highest achieving North Hampshire Council, with Corby second, and they achieved 3 out of 12 standards. So we actually we doubled the number of the next nearest competitive ours in the county have. So I think that speaks volumes to the fact we respect our staff, and I know as members we've always respected the great work they do on behalf of this council and our residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Miller for that exceptionally cool response. It was generally good to hear. As the Secretary, there's just a slight danger, given that we have this appreciation of the work that the staff do, that we have that good relationship that the Councillor Miller has referred to. It would be unfortunate if, when the tally was done after the 17th of October, if Daventry was not on the list of those councils that had opted in and were listed as being seen to have supported the day, and rather than just the good words that we eventually heard here in the council chamber. I wonder if you might consider things that we might do just to make sure that it is not assumed by anybody, and certainly not assumed by staff, that the fact that we haven't done more, or we're not planning to do more on this particular celebration, is not a signal that they are undervalued.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to come back on that. I hope our staff never feel they're undervalued on any day of the year. I said already this is a one-day celebration. We have been approached by Unison, and if Unison were to approach us, then we would consider that. I think it's their prerogative to do that. But I would say again, Councillor Ritchie, we appreciate our staff for every day of the year, not just for one day of the year. We celebrate what they do for this council, to the residents we represent. And I leave by that, Chairman, for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And second question from Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I must say the chamber looks rather strange from this angle. A notice has very recently appeared on the website of National Rail Inquiries to the effect that London North Western Railway, LNWR, will be ceasing their usual 3 trains per hour service northbound to Birmingham New Street from Long Buckby. This change will be permanent and it will commence from Monday 7th of October, that's Monday last. So service from that date will be reduced to 2 trains per hour. 3 trains per hour will continue to run the route from Northampton, but the 3rd train in the hourly sequence will run through Long Buckby without stopping. LNWR said in their announcement that, and I quote, "This change is being made to improve performance and reliability," end quote. Since the 3 trains per hour run at approximately 20-minute intervals, this means that from this week there will be no Long Buckby to Birmingham service for about 40 minutes in each hour. Long Buckby Station is a main station for travel from Daventry town and for much of the district, and is used by large numbers of commuters and travellers to Rugby, Coventry and Birmingham, both the city centre and the airport. It is difficult to see how reducing services by 33% in this way can possibly improve performance and reliability, given that each train stops only for about 2 minutes at the station and is on a line mostly used only by these LNWR services and occasional freight trains. There must also be concerns about LNWR's intentions regarding southbound services to London Euston if this is allowed to stand. Therefore, I'm asking the Leaders' Council the following. Firstly, is there a requirement on railway companies to consult the affected community, and was DDC consulted on this proposed timetable change? Secondly, if DDC was consulted, when did that take place and what views were expressed by the Council? If not consulted, what views would it have expressed if it had been asked? Thirdly, does the Leader agree that this is not a welcome development for rail travellers in Daventry town on the western side of the district, and will he undertake to make representations to LNWR and to relevant rail user bodies to get this draconian service reduction reinstated, and furthermore will he publish those representations? And lastly, will the Leader undertake to contact the Department of Transport, who presumably were consulted, to ascertain whether or not they were consulted, what position they took on it, and to lobby strenuously to have these services reinstated? And in this context, I note that our local MP is now a Minister of State in charge of transport.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I want to thank Councillor Nicol for the question. I wasn't aware until you asked that question that had actually taken place. But since you did raise the question, I made some investigative work and come up with hopefully an answer that you will find satisfactory. The first 2 questions you actually were not consulted as Council, as far as I'm aware, so therefore your first 2 questions are answered on that basis. From the DFT, West Midlands Trains, who operate the London North Western Railway brand trains that provide services to Long Buckby, introduced their new timetable in May 2019. Whilst this has provided passengers benefits such as new journey opportunities, this has also led to a significant dip in rail performance. This is coming from the DFT, okay? Whilst not on the scale of the disruption experienced by passengers in the north and south east as a result of the May 2018 timetable change, the increased level of delays and cancellations being experienced is not good enough. That's their view, and it's one we would share if that's the case. What's caused this situation, how making this temporary amendment to the timetable is designed to make an improvement before a permanent solution can be implemented. So I stress that this change is temporary. The change in proposal is temporary, and the level of stops at Long Buckby will be reintroduced at the next timetable change on the 15th of December 2019. This is a very temporary change at the moment, Councillor Nicol. A new feature of the timetable since May is that the WMT trains from Euston that travel by Long Buckby to Birmingham New Street now split to travel further to either Liverpool, Crewe or Rugeley, which I believe is in Staffordshire, before returning to Euston by Birmingham. For example, the 10:24 service from Euston arrives in Birmingham at 12:40, and then splits into 2 parts, one going to Crewe and then the other to Rugeley, Trent Valley. One of the challenges that WMT have faced since the May timetable change has been to get their trains travelling from London Euston into Birmingham New Street station on time. And that's one of the reasons why the change has been put forward. WMT have identified the key to improving the situation is to ensure that their trains enter the heavily congested and constricted Coventry to Birmingham lines on time. Otherwise, interaction with other trains will cause delays to both WMTs and other operating services. By reducing the service level at Long Buckby, WMT hope to increase the number of trains that enter this route on time. Bearing in mind this is only a temporary change. In terms of how many stops have been removed, WMT are obligated to provide 46 calls per weekday at Long Buckby on trains heading to Birmingham New Street. This will reduce to a minimum of 39 calls per day, with all but one of the removed stops being on off-peak services. Weekends are not affected. So again, they're saying this is very much a temporary measure, and therefore the stops will be reintroduced from the 15th of December this year. So members of the public must be aware this is only 2 more months to go, and then these stops will be reinstated. And in the meantime, the impact will not be that great, and it certainly will not be permanent. Officials are monitoring the situation closely to ensure that the contract with WMT brings the envisaged benefits that passengers deserve. So I hope that gives you some comfort, Councillor Miller.
I'd like to thank Councillor Miller for an extremely comprehensive answer. I assume that information has been supplied by the railway company or DOT. It's good to hear that the service will be reinstated, and Councillor Miller did mention the word temporary or temporarily a number of times. But it does very clearly say on the website, and I'm reading, from Monday the 7th of October, these services will be reduced due to a permanent change in the timetable. So either they're misleading the public or they're misleading the council. Can't be both.
Thank you, Chairman. All I can say, Councillor Wright, is this is from the horse's mouth, so to speak. This is coming from the DFT, and they're telling me this is a temporary situation. I'm not sure. I can't comment on the information you've been supplied with, or where that came from, what was put out originally. So I always like to be comprehensive when you ask questions like this, because Long Buckby is very important for this council. We've said for many times that for 257 square miles of our district, this is the only station in our district area. And with the growth of Daventry town and the growth of surrounding villages, the importance of the station can't be understated. And as we've seen in Long Buckby, those who live in Long Buckby know we've got housing estates very close to the station now, where people obviously commute whichever way they go. And the great news I felt thought out of this information coming forward was there's more routes coming out of Long Buckby now. You've got more options to go out further afield. Even though I did think, well, actually, you go to Birmingham, you can go anywhere from Birmingham, really. So, that's what they're saying there, but that's what they're saying directly from Long Buckby. So all I would say to you is, well, the proof will be in the pudding. But that's coming from the DFT. It's in writing, so it doesn't happen. We can go back on the 16th of December, if it's not happened by then, or by January, should we say, and then we'll find out what is going on. But I'm confident that's the situation. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so moving on to agenda item 7, motions under Council Convener Rule 12. And we have a motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. We brought this motion, obviously, with Brexit being very much on the political agenda. But the government has promised that, that if we do leave the European Union, whether or not we do it with a deal or without a deal, those citizens of other European Union states who are resident in Britain will be allowed to remain here. To remain in Britain, however, unless they have some residence entitlement beyond the fact that they are citizens of another European Union country, they will be required to register with the EU settlement scheme that the government has now established. We're moving this motion because there have been reports that people's access to the scheme, the rate at which people have been signing up across the country, has been a bit mixed. It may be that there are a lot of people who they may have heard the headline and have assumed that therefore there's nothing else they need to do, without actually reading the small print about how they do need to register. The requirements for registration are far from onerous. They've only got to demonstrate that they have lived in the country for 5 years. They don't need to argue what they have been doing for these 5 years, whether they've been employed or anything like that. We have only got to be able to demonstrate residence, and if we can't demonstrate residence for 5 years, if it's a shorter period of time, then they can register and they're given a temporary status and can apply once they have achieved that 5 years. But the consequences of not registering can be quite serious. If you do not register, and the registration documents actually, or whether it's regarded as registration or application documents, spell it out, there is a danger that they can be regarded as illegal immigrants. There is a danger that they may be detained and they may be deported. And if you think that sounds fairly draconian, just think what happened to some of these people who came to Britain with the Windrush more than half a century ago and found themselves being deported because they hadn't signed the necessary bits of paper a long time ago. So it is important that we actually do these things. And if it is the case that there are some areas where local authorities, voluntary agencies and others are proactively going about trying to make sure that people understand what it is they need to do, I would like us to make sure that Daventry is within that group. We are, after all, we are a district where we have fairly large communities from other European countries, particularly from countries of Eastern Europe. They are people who support our economy. Many of our businesses depend on the labour. And I think, therefore, that their welfare, their rights to remain here, should be a concern to us. The motion therefore asks that we do everything reasonably possible. I would be happy to leave it to officers to decide what reasonably possible actually means, although it would be nice if at some stage we have a report back to say what has actually been done. Clearly there are many people that can be identified as they are on the electoral register, but there will be many, many more, and the people who are more likely to be vulnerable probably don't appear there. But there must be other ways through housing associations, letting agencies, employers, to make sure that we get the message out as far as we can, so that people don't fall foul of these rules. It is likely that a lot of the people that we might be able to approach have already done what is necessary if they were in a position in which they needed to do anything at all. But I don't see that is necessarily a bad thing. There are many reports of people from other European countries here at the moment who are anxious, who are very anxious about what Brexit will mean for them. Approach perhaps a kindly letter from DDC telling them what the rights are, that DDC is there if they are ready to advise on what they need to do, I think would provide some welcome reassurance.
Thank you. EU citizens, their families, are our friends, neighbours and colleagues, and we want them to stay. We want to stay. They're part of the Daventry district, and we will do everything we can to support them. But I'm sure you are aware that the Home Office are taking on this project. It's apparently the biggest task they've ever taken on. I think the initial estimates were between 500 and 600 million pounds. All right, it's actually been scrutinised by the Home Affairs Committee, who are happy with their engagement protocols, especially with regard to the children and the vulnerable. And so a lot of work is being done. I think in The Guardian recently they talked about they've already spent 450 million pounds on it. But also, more importantly, in September, they say 500,000 people signed up. So there is actually quite a good uptake. I think there are still some concerns with regard to the IT systems, but the Home Office actually have got this under control, and they are doing the job that they are paid to do. The problem is that all these EU citizens are also taxpayers. And what you're suggesting here, by asking our staff to contact all nationals, is to give a burden upon our officers to actually how they're going to do it, an investigation to find out what nationalities, is a lot of work. So in other words, we are duplicating the work the Home Office are doing, and at the same time we are costing the district people money, which is unnecessary. That cannot be right in anyone's world. All right, we can't just unilaterally take on the Home Office's responsibility, spend public money on it, all right, when the job has already been done. On the 20th of July 2016, we passed a motion here that we would support our EU citizens, and we do, and will continue to do. But this motion doesn't make sense. It's going to cost unnecessary money for our residents, and it should be denied. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I second the motion. It needn't cost hardly any money to do anything like that. It's a simple question. We distribute Daventry calling. Put something in the Daventry calling that goes to every household in this district. It's already, we've already got, all you've got to do is just put one advertisement in there. We can put a poster down in the main reception area. It doesn't need to cost any money whatsoever. We use social media. We put something out on social media. So why has it got to be a big cost? I never understand why something so simple that we put forward in this council chamber has to be turned around and become such a big cost negative situation. That's all that we are asking, something very simple. Somebody cares about everyone.
You won't be surprised on my views on this particular issue. I would obviously support this motion. Again, I don't believe that it necessarily needs to cost lots of money. The website could be one means, potentially, and using social media to direct people to that. I think it's more about a signal as much as anything else. It's not about duplicating any system, official system. It's more about making it clear how we stand and how we feel in this area. In the 2011 census, which is the most recent information we have, about 2.4% of the population were EU nationals. That's roughly around 2,000 people. My guess is, that's 8 years old, that information, my guess is that number is significantly higher than that. And I want to echo the point that these people generally, not exclusively, but quite a lot of these people work in very essential services, and I think we should continue to make them feel welcome. So I don't see this as a cost issue.
Any other speakers? Councillor Richards.
If I may reply to what has been a very short debate, can I say to begin with that certainly all the time I've been on this council, we've enjoyed the leadership of Councillor Miller. It's been hugely entertaining. But I thought for a moment that we were entering a new era when the council leader-to-be started referring to articles in The Guardian. I thought that perhaps that we were going to have a new liberal era ahead of us. Unfortunately not. Daventry District Council wasn't in existence in the days of the Windrush, and they certainly wouldn't have been in a position to record the discussions. But I could imagine there was the same sort of discussion amongst whatever the appropriate authorities were back then. If Councillor Burt, or any other councillor for that matter, did notice a long article, a long read, we call it, in The Guardian, it was after this motion had been submitted. It did refer to the work that was being done by the Home Office, and I'm not critical of the work that has been done in the Home Office, but they made the point that there is still a lot to be done. It's not the only report that has been made on this particular issue. There have been reports from groups that are concerned with community relations, that are concerned with immigration issues, that there are many people that that don't come under the net. People who perhaps they do not have particularly good English, they do not follow what is happening politically in Britain. They are here in this country, but we haven't managed to successfully make them members of our communities, of our society. They do not have the same sort of information. They don't understand the officialdom or the administration they need to get through. And I would urge members to vote for this motion, not on the assumption that this is going to cost a vast amount of money, but that we simply do. I would have liked to have thought that Daventry District Council, as a matter of policy, tried to have communication with these particular minority groups within the district, that it would actually be doing that from time to time anyway. And here is a reason if we haven't been doing it, we're starting to do it. I hope people will not take such a mean view as our future council leader and decide that we should be doing more here.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Actually, you'll be pleased to know that we're not mean, that we've already discussed this, only just recently in the last few days, and decided to put an article in Daventry Calling, and also to put something on the website, the signpost thing. Thank you.
A point of order. My understanding, and I think my opening remarks, I mentioned that I was responding to the debate. Do I get another chance to respond? Do you want the debate to continue?
Yes. Councillor Ritchie.
I don't see that there was very much to actually respond to, but I would have that having concluded the debate, then there are others who feel that they should pitch in. I simply ask that the rules of debate are observed.
Councillor Frost.
Just a question. If an elected member wants to... Sorry. The question is, if an elected member wants to put an information notice on the notice board, are they allowed to do that?
Well, the Chairman, I think if elected members want to put messages out, I think they do need to follow the protocol and get into the officer cohort before we do that. I guess it could be anything, couldn't it?
Well, quite. Is it, and the procedure is I just wanted someone to contact us.
Thank you, Councillor Frost. Okay, so we should go to the vote. So those in favour of information? And those against? Okay, the motion is lost. So moving on to motion 7.2, Councillor Ritchie.
Chair, for future meetings, you might like to see if staff could schedule items of business so that the same councillor doesn't need to read in everything. But we put this motion. We know that we have been working for the last year in anticipation of a reorganisation into two unitary authorities within the county. We have assumed that that was something that is going to happen. Many have been working to make sure that the transition is a smooth one, and particularly that in any change, that the interests of Daventry District are as far as they can are protected. A two-unitary model is not what many people wanted. We may be working to try to make it work, but it has not been our preferred option. And if I say many of us, I suspect that probably means most of us. If it's not most of us here within this council chamber, certainly amongst our constituents. The two-unitary model was rejected when the Northamptonshire councils had their own consultation back a bit over a year ago, was it about a year ago? It was rejected at that stage. It was overwhelmingly rejected at a meeting of parish councils. When the government had its own consultation, there was a submission made made by people within Daventry and South Northampton District that had attracted the full support of over 20 parish councils and over 170 individual councillors, some at district level, but mainly at parish level and town council level. I to that too. That I'm grateful to Councillor Miller for having done something unsuccessfully in trying to get a report on what that consultation closed about the middle of January. I have been trying for 6 months to get a report on what it says, and I think it's interesting that the government, that the ministry, has not been willing to actually tell us what a consultation of people within our district is actually said. But my assumption is that there is a majority, certainly of those who are active in parish councils in other ways, feel that a three-unitary model, a model that separates Northampton from Daventry and South Northants would be preferable. We had assumed that by this stage that our fate would have been sealed, that the structural change order would have gone through Parliament, and that was that. However, the structural change order has not gone through Parliament. It may be getting near, but when it does get there, I don't think you should just assume that it will be nodded through. There are politicians, both in the Commons and in the Lords, who will want to discuss it. It is going to require parliamentary time, and that appears to be something that is not available at Westminster. When the Commons is not prorogued, there are many other things that they seem to want to talk about that they consider more important. There is a real possibility that the structural change order will not go through Parliament before we have a general election. We don't know what the outcome of a general election would be. It's possible that it might produce a government even more horrible and awful than the one we've got. But on the other hand, they produce a government that is not wedded to the idea that unitary authorities must have at least 300,000 residents, when there is no objective basis for setting that figure at 300,000. It may be that we have a government, whatever its political colours might be, that we might have a government that actually does partly believe that local government is something that should belong to local democracy and should reflect what people want. So all that we say in this motion is that if we do find ourselves in those happy circumstances, that we should be ready to make it clear that our preference will be a three-unitary model, that is, ourselves with South Northants. I don't think it would mean that much of the work that already has been done would necessarily be wasted. Of course, there are some things that would need to be changed. But taking the time to make a few changes is surely a better option than going full steam ahead towards a form of reorganisation that will be with us, for decades to come, and which we don't think will be the best reorganisation for the people of this district.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Randall for the motion before us. It's like going back in time a bit, really, isn't it? Because actually, Councillor Ritchie, what you're saying here has been discussed before in this council chamber. This council did prefer the three-unitary option, but the guidelines given to us quite strongly were you either had a number between 1 and 3. And the answer is 2, isn't it? And that's what we had to go along. And we either agreed with that or we didn't agree with it. But the point is, all apart from Corby in our county agreed that option, and therefore, being part of a bigger picture, we had to go along the 2 route, and we have to make the best of that while we can. It wasn't our preferred option, but we're dealing with government here who are far more powerful than we are as a district council. We do actually, as a council, make big representations on behalf of our residents in many, many areas, and we are doing so at the moment in trying to shape the new unitary moving forward. Myself and my deputy here stepping down, and this Councillor Brown and Councillor Auger are going to go forward on behalf of this council. I'm very confident they have two strong voices representing our district area, place myself and Liz, when that time comes. And that's very, very important. And I think one thing we don't want, Councillor Rich, is to have a divisive split. We have to accept where we are. If that opportunity comes along, then your motion has more credibility. But at the moment it has no credibility, because it's just conjecture, what if, and what if the government, and what if, we have that opportunity again. If that opportunity arrives, that's the time, if this council wants to, can have that discussion again. But I think this motion really should be rejected on the basis, well, it's just purely conjecture, we are where we are, we have to work with what we have. Our views are known, you're quite right, we wanted 3, we can't have 3, so we're going for 2, and we have to make the best of that too, on behalf of our residents. So I think, through you, Chairman, I say we should reject this motion, because it's got no merit. I think we should do.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, I second the motion, and I think a lot of the planning that we do within the council are what-ifs. We set all our budgets on what-ifs, and it was just basically a question: if there was a change in government, would we make it preference that we would prefer a 3-unitary model? It was just a what-if. Thank you.
So, go to the vote. So those in... Sorry, Councillor Richard. Would you like to come back?
Yeah. Very briefly, this wasn't intended to reopen debates that we've had in the past. It wasn't intended to be critical of the work that this council has done in trying to get the 2-unitary model to work as well as it can for us. Of course, we're in a position where we have a government that says that this is the way it's going to be, that we need to accept that and make the best of it. At the time that this motion was submitted for debate at this meeting, it was perfectly possible that by the time of our December meeting we might have had a new government. Things at the moment politically may move very, very quickly. And yes, Councillor Miller may simply suggest that this is all conjecture. Does the Conservative group not sit making plans for what it would be, what its strategy is going to be ahead? Of course this is conjecture, but we have got to be ready for major decisions that this council may be required to take. And if the opportunities arise, I believe that we have got to be clear about what the position of the council is and what the council is going to do in these circumstances. I therefore hope people will vote for this.
Okay, so those in favour of the vote of the motion?
Chairman.
And those against? It's defeated. So moving on to agenda item 7.3, motion from Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. A motion to monitor the cinema development. A bit alliterative, but there we go, never mind. Once again, I'm compelled to look at the cinema project. I have to emphasise though, I'm not against the development in principle, so don't accuse me of that. And indeed, the Labour Council's own Daventry Town resident survey, Daventry Future, we found that there was significant support for one. But we do have to ensure it's the best that can be done. It is going to be this council's swan song, likely to be one of its final big gestures to the townsfolk of Daventry. So we don't want this to be a, shall we say, a monstrous white elephant hiding in embarrassment behind the high street. We want it to be a shining legacy of this council's efforts. We should be proud when we look back at this time in future years, should we survive Brexit and manage to act against the oncoming climate emergency. We also know it's one very expensive project. There's a significant impact on this council's finances. And for this reason alone, nothing but success can or should be contemplated. But members, I continue, as do my colleagues, to be concerned. Only recently some residents have commented to me that there's no activity on the library site. It's been demolished, but nothing's happening. And this is something I've observed myself, and I've noted in the motion before you this evening. Also, though, since writing, I've noticed a resumption in the clearance of the site, removing the rubble the demolition created. So this is a welcome situation. However, after this short preamble, here's the main event, the cinema operator. We'll come back to that, or rather, the lack of one. My previous motion on this subject, which was made at the May 2019 full council, recommended certain actions be taken if within 3 months of that date an operator had not been appointed. Well, we're now nearly 5 months from that meeting, and I've still not seen any announcement. I do accept sometimes that deals, commercial or otherwise, are difficult to strike. Take the good old Brexit as a prime example. But should we not be very concerned with the continued absence of probably the most fundamental key to this project's success, the appointment of an operator? I hope Councillor Brown is not going to announce, oh, we've got one, but I don't know at the moment. The last announcement, just after the May full council, suggested an appointment and signing of leases was coming shortly. Bit of a vague concept, shortly, but let's see how we get on. Are we not a bit beyond shortly now? Is an update not overdue? Is there an issue of which we are not aware? Can an operator not be found on terms of engagement? Too difficult or onerous? Just don't know. Our residents don't know. And the final point, the budget. So we had the original quick calculation, ballpark estimate, whatever you like to call it, of 8 million or so, which suddenly shot up by 50% to 12. Plus, of course, we now have to rebuild the Burbage wall. Have these estimates been found wanting, or are the finances on target? We don't know. So to sum up, as I've mentioned in the motion, let's please have regular updates. Can we have updates on the appointment or progress towards the appointment of an operator, updates on the progress of the build, and updates on the expenditure and planned budget for the project. And of course, by us, I mean updating not only members here, but also reporting out to our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brown,
Thank you, Chairman. No disrespect to Councillor Brown, who is the Deputy Leader, but it's a question to the Leader, and I'm very pleased to answer it, actually, because I'm not sure Councillor Dabbs looked at his emails or looked at the website or looked at what's going on. There's a press release gone out today to confirm that ARC have been announced as Daventry's cinema operator. Also, as you'd be aware, that the contract that's now been signed. Also, the contract with Wilmot Dixon's been signed. So therefore, we have in place the means now to deliver this project within the budget we set. And also, this has gone out on social media today. There's been, what I've seen, there's been some very positive responses coming in. People saying they wanted this, and that's very encouraging to see as well. So therefore, the feedback we're getting overall is this is exactly what people wanted in Daventry. For people to come and visit the town, to actually enjoy themselves at the cinema or the eateries that are going to be there, and so therefore I think this is a very positive story for Daventry. So I'm giving you an update now, Councillor Dabbs. It's an update which hopefully will answer your last part of your motion, because obviously I think I've answered that. Status of the appointment of the operator, the status of progress of the build, and the commentary on the budget. And obviously this is on the website, I understand, it's on the website already. So your points have been covered. And I think this is very good news, that the people of Daventry who've asked for this before, and I haven't seen many, I've only looked at some responses today, I don't know, in the last few hours, but the responses I saw were generally very, very positive. And I think that's good news to the town, it's good news to the district, and thank you, Chairman, for that.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's curious that Councillor Dabbs said that he hoped I wasn't going to announce the appointment of an operator, when during his opening speech he also said that he wasn't against the cinema project in principle. But I would draw members' attention to the motion in front of us, which helpfully reminds us of the Labour motion at Council on the 15th of May, which suggested that should an operator not be found within 3 months of today, i.e. that would have been August 2019, the project should be cancelled. So had we listened to the Labour Party, money would have been wasted, time would have been wasted, and an immense opportunity would have been lost. Act in haste, repent at leisure, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
Well said.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Forgive me, Councillor Brown, but your track record as part of your group hasn't been tremendous, has it, up to this point? In terms of...
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I believe members should address the meeting through the chair.
Yeah, well, I have, through the chair.
No, you said you.
Yeah, through the chair. When we look at infrastructure projects that were supposed to be delivered within this council, which is why we have sought candour, transparency, and an announcement 2 hours ago on social media is the only reason why Councillor Dadd looked at you and spoke to you in that way as you were smiling and then grin, because you knew that that announcement was being made. I'm glad we have finally a contractor. We have some positive information regarding the development of multi-place development, something that Labour Group supported. But we'll remind you through the chair, Councillor Brown, that some of the main tenets of this council, knowing that we have unfortunately previously been named in Rotten Boroughs and other periodicals for other infrastructure projects, are that the objectives are to improve our business economy. That's all we seek to do, in unison with other members and council officers, and be efficient and an effective council also. So by publicising development, progression, that's all we ask for. It seems that it's predated this motion, and that there is now information that we are more than happy with. However, I can assure you, we will again be putting forward a motion if things start going quiet again.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Councillor Ritchie talk first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to hear that we've got an operator and that through time we will have a cinema. As you know, I had grave doubts about the economics of this and whether it was worth the money. But now that we have earned our votes by knocking down the old library, let's have a cinema, even if it is not, a masterpiece of architecture. But I think that the issue now shifts from simply being about the appointment of an operator, but about the way in which portfolio holders actually update and elect to other members of the council and, where appropriate, to the public. Now, we should not be surprised by the fact that somebody has been appointed. It had been announced that discussions with interested cinema operators were ongoing. That announcement was made in June of last year. When it came to a strategy group meeting back in November of last year, 11 months ago, it was said that ideally the operator would already have been selected. In other words, 11 months ago, it was recognised that, that the one thing that was behind scheduling this project was the selection of the operator. And by making a statement like that, and it's from a paper, I expect it would be from one of the officers that would have put it together. But a statement suggests that this is something that had to be regarded as a matter of urgency. But it went on and on. There were talk about all the time, everything seemed to be terribly upbeat, that yes, discussions were continuing. There were more recent statements that the lease would be signed at the same time as the construction began, and that was going to be sometime during the middle of summer. There were later statements in a spotlight suggesting that it was going to be the middle of August. That was 2 months ago. We haven't been told anything about why these delays are taking place, and we have a right to be concerned. This all seems exceptionally similar to the fact that we went for years being told about the exciting retailers that couldn't be named that had signed up that were going to be part of the Site 5 retail park. And it went on and on. Nothing happened. We had stories that deals had been done, that agreements had been reached with tenants, people who were going to run shops that were going to undertake, and nothing happened until there was a statement saying that 2 days before a strategy group meeting, that the whole thing had fallen through. These are the sorts of concerns we have, by the fact that we did not hear anything until, I see the announcement was made 2 hours ago, until 2 hours before a council meeting. That, frankly, is not good enough. If this was the House of Commons, Minister David James would have been shuffled out of his position a long time ago and back to the backbenchers.
So we'll respond to that. So, Chairman, thank you much indeed. Well, it's a bit extraordinary, really, isn't it? That here we have Labour saying on one hand we're very happy, on the other hand we're not happy at all because we're actually delivering it. And you say Councillor James is delivering something, he would be actually in his place. If he didn't deliver it, that might be a different question. And I find it quite extraordinary that the depth of the... it sounds as though you're not very happy, really. You should be happy because it's good news for the town. This is state-of-the-art new cinemas, not the big cinemas, it's new cinemas, and it's going to bring people into the town centre. And Councillor Brown...
Point of order. I can't quite remember the particular term for the point of order, to make clarification on something I said. Perhaps the monitoring officer can advise the...
What the Council refers to is the ability to speak again by means of a personal explanation.
A personal explanation.
In terms of misunderstanding of something previously said, which you could take now or you could take after this contribution.
That my words are either being misunderstood. Well, let me be generous and assume that they were misunderstood. I am not saying that we are unhappy. My complaint is not about the cinema or about the choice of operator. I know nothing about that. My complaint is about the process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify with Councillor Ritchie, the reason it didn't just happen 2 hours before because that's the way it always planned. Negotiations go on all the time. In fact, a week ago, we were trying to get this done as soon as we could, and clearly those negotiations go on all the time. And one thing I'd like to say, in case there's any implied criticism of our officers, I think Ian Vincent and his team have done a tremendous job here, in this climate we're in at the moment, to actually get this delivered. And I'm sure you're not trying to imply there's any criticism of officers, but some of the things you're saying could be construed that way. Because you're making lots of reasons why things fall over at the last minute. It's not to do with this council, it's to do with the market really. That's what happens. See, when you make statements like that, you can be very careful you're not actually unintentionally criticising officers of this council, who in my view and other members' view here, have done an excellent job over a long period of time. These things, if you get into power, Councillor Ritchie, you'll start to understand the complexities that are, I'm sure you know anyway from your background, the complexities that there are in life, and when you try to do things which are quite ambitious, and I think this council's done very well. If you look at all the councils across Northamptonshire, we've done very well in many respects of delivery. Then I think that's something we should always be mindful of when we're making these contributions. I'm glad you're pleased. You should be pleased because it's good news for the town. The Labour group did support him there, originally going back many years, including Councillor Randall. And I think it is good news, and I think it's going to bring people into the town, and it's going to make other businesses sustainable around that hub. And we're going to have a lovely public square there as well, which people want to come and visit. So it's not just about the cinema's one part of it. And we've got a new library there as now, on the new Abbey building. So I think the key thing here is trying to be positive about the good news for Daventry. And many other councils wish they were in our position. And whilst you can throw stuff like Rotten Boroughs, which was one example, I remember the Rotten Borough one, which I think came from your group, maybe I can't be sure. And it's only one example, and that's the only one there ever was, by the way. In mine, I'm not sure interest. I must have missed that edition, sorry, my apologies. Okay. But I just want to say to you, but the key thing is, you can be negative if you want to be, but the reality is positive news. And you're quite right, you should keep the administration, make sure they do deliver when it's going forward and the project's going forward. As the administration makes sure our officers are making sure we keep to the budget on time and what have you. But overall, I think it's very positive news for Daventry. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, so I've got three speakers. Councillor McWright, Councillor Orban and Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a pretty significant development, and I think it's quite right and proper that the council and members of the council should want to monitor what is happening with this scheme. But I would like to ask the leader of the council a question, or make a statement and invite them to respond. When, on the 4th of July this year, when the strategy group met, and it received a report from the Section 151 officer on the revenue budget and the capital programme, according to what I've just read online, there was a section in that that referred to the status of the cinema project. Was that not an opportunity for responsible officers to mention, or for members to ask, or for responsible officers to say what the status of the appointment of the operator was, what the status of the progress of the build was, and to provide commentary on the budget? Or is there a second secret cinema that I don't know about? It strikes me that all this was dealt with through the proper financial reporting process in the normal course of events, was it not?
Well, it's a question to myself. I'm not sure. I mean, see what you're really saying there, going back to that date, there was obviously mention of an operator. But sorry, I misunderstood.
I can clarify. What I was saying was that there was a section in the report on the capital programme that referred to that part of the capital programme that related to the cinema.
Yes.
Was that not an opportunity for any member who was interested to ask any question and receive any information that he wanted that wasn't commercially sensitive? In which case, why are we having this now?
Yeah. So my apologies, Chairman, I misunderstood Councillor McCrew. Absolutely right, Councillor McCrew. That was exactly the time this question should have been asked then, and not leave it to the last minute now when it's actually in the council meeting. Thank you much indeed.
Councillor Robert.
Thank you. I just I spent a week with our leader, and I want to just testify about how hard the officers work on some very complicated business matters. And you can have a little giggle, but that's the reality. The reality is that it is the politics. Open hand. It's an open hand. Right. At the end of the day, it is the politics of negativity, and we don't need the politics of negativity. You know, they can only work a certain time, and the reason why some of these delays happen is actually to get the job done right for the benefit of the residents out there. If we rushed into things and we made mistakes, then it's only the residents that actually pay the price on this. And so at the end of the day, I want to thank our officers for what they do. Thank you for doing a thorough job. I know it takes more time than we want, all of us want, but at least they're doing a good job at it. And the negativity and the animosity that comes from you colleagues is really, really, really something that we need to actually move forward on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There's no animosity. We're in agreement. Going forward, we have a wonderful development for residents of Daventry and the district. My point is, as it's been reiterated by the people, is about process of communication and update. Residents have the right to know where we are with things with an infrastructure project that will cost 12.6 million. If it's nothing happening, then nothing is happening. And perhaps that's why I've gleaned from the latest edition of Daventry Calling, where we have the front page spread of Councillor Miller as the leader, quite rightly purporting the successes that he's had, and congratulating his deputy as well, of course. But other than that, looking through the whole communication, we have one line which totals the capital expenditure for 2018-19. We have a banner on the side of page 9 which informs people, residents of the capital spend in terms of the Braunston cycle path, which people want to hear about. But they also want to hear about progress, Councillor Auger, in terms of capital infrastructure projects, that knowing the life of this council and the unitary is quite short. That's all I'm asking for. There is no negativity, and I reject that claim. As already pointed out, the Labour group has supported this. The residents want it.
Councillor James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased that at long last we've got the agreement signed, both for the contract and also for the operation of the cinema. Very disappointed that the Labour Party should put this motion down, but then I suppose, as we all know now, the Labour Party is the master of the each way bet. It says it will respect that, it will accept this, but when push comes to shove, it changes its mind. It changes its mind from week to week. And as for Councillor Dabbs complaining about the delay, may I remind him that planning permission was only obtained for the cinema in February of this year. And at that time, it was by no means certain that planning permission would have been granted, because it is in a very sensitive spot. So that's the first thing. It does, the whole thing reminds me of the punter who goes into Ladbrokes on Grand National Day and then comes out laughing because I've backed the winner, the second, the third, and the fourth, I've got this, I've got that, only to tell you that he's backed every horse in the race and ends up as a net loser. And that really sums up the attitude of the Labour Party over the cinema. It's, oh yes, we were all for it all the time, but they weren't. And I remember in particular, not even at the planning stage, there were those that were against it. And I have to say this, you really have to sharpen your act up, the Labour Party, if you're to progress any further. Because we've done our level best to get this project off the ground. The officers have done extremely well, working against the clock. No one could have done it quicker, whilst at the same time minimising the risks involved. And why didn't we tell you everything? Quite simply this. If you're looking for an operator and you've got a selection of operators, you don't tell 2 or 3 of them that you've got no chance, we've already got one in mind who's going to get it, because we weren't sure of that. So the name of the operator had to be kept quiet until the end. And the other thing about this is no use signing a construction contract if, of course, you haven't got an operator, and vice versa, the other way round. Risk has to be minimised at the same time, and it does cost money to minimise risk too. So, you know, I would like an apology from the Labour Party over their performance in respect to the cinema, and I think I'm due one.
So I've got Councillors Randall, Councillor Howard, and then Councillor Roberts.
All I'd like to say is I'm very disappointed that we actually had to put this motion forward in the first place to try and find out some information. All we were doing was asking for an update. People saw the library come down, and you can shake your head all you like. I don't know how many residents have stopped me over the last few weeks to say they haven't seen any movement on the site. So the reason this motion went in was because nobody had told us anything, and we were asking on behalf of the residents if anything's happening. What is negative about asking a question, having to ask a question on progress? I just don't understand where your thinking is. Everything we put forward, you turn round as we see as a negative. I just don't get it.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor James pretty said much of what I was going to say. I'm not quite sure which member of the Labour Party goes to the Daventry Implementation Working Group. I believe it's Ken, I could be wrong. I'm not sure if you attended the last meeting, Ken, but we've got a lot of officers that go to that meeting. We've also got a lot of senior management, and Councillor James gives us privy information, which is we need to keep quiet because of obviously the business developments that are going on. But you would be, if you went to those meetings, be privy to the information. You wouldn't need to put motions to the council because you'd have that information, as the town council has the information. So we do share this information with you. So to say you're not aware of it, I can't remember if you did go to the meeting. I do apologise if you did. But if you did, you wasn't listening. The information was there. Councillor Ritchie.
I was not at the last meeting as I was out of the district.
Then I'll rest my case, Chair.
No, I fully accept your case. But the point that you make, raises an issue. But in the last year, I think we did not have, until we insisted, a representative on that particular working group. And unless we're in a position that we can get there and get the information, I accept the last meeting I did miss, as I was in Scotland at the time, attending a funeral. We were not able to get somebody to take my place in time. However, I raised my hand on another matter. Councillor James made reference, a criticism, to Labour members having criticised the cinema proposal at the planning stage. Is that in order? Within the planning committee, members are obliged to put their party colours behind them, insofar as they can. They're obliged to actually take a view of a project based on the legislation, based on the planning policies, in an objective way. I feel that that remark that was made was out of order. And I feel that I would like to invite you, Chair, to ask Councillor James to withdraw it.
Well, I think with reference to the monitor officer, really, I think we need to answer the question for now and for the future.
The Chairman, Councillor G is quite right to suggest the planning committee must be apolitical to its actions. I think Councillor James made a factual observation that the Labour Party members made their comments as they did. I don't think there's anything problematic about that per se, so I wouldn't suggest there is a need to ask for withdrawal. The observation was made, the comment was made, it was taken the way it was taken. That's the nature of the debate. I suggest you carry on and deal with the motion that's before you, Chair.
Okay, so we'll go to a vote on this motion. So,
Thank you, Chair. I wonder, Councillor James, whether you actually listened to what I said. It was the recent non-activity on site that residents were questioning, not the whole job from February. The February planning application and passing of that is totally irrelevant to what this motion was about. And it's what Councillor Ritchie has said. It's the process. It's us being in the dark. And not only us Labour members being in the dark, and maybe we have, as Councillor Howard says, the opportunity to go on certain committees to hear an update. What do the residents hear? The residents hear nothing. And I think it's really interesting that this motion was submitted to the council, whatever, 10 days ago or so, and we get an announcement today. And you say, I don't check the website. Well, I've been checking the website. Unfortunately, I didn't check it today. Oh dear, because I've not been around today. But I think it's a bit rich, actually, when I think about it. Going back to May and the previous motion, there's strangely enough, straight after that motion was debated, an announcement appears on the website. And here we are, we have another motion on this issue, and I'm going to find that there's another update to the website when I get home. Brilliant. But it doesn't strike me as that we're running a particularly open and frank operation here. It's all smoke and mirrors, keep things quiet, keep the Labour bench out of the loop. And by keeping us out of the loop, you're also keeping the residents out of the loop. So I think it's pretty appalling. And I think, we are due updates. I expect regular updates. And even though I suspect we may not carry this motion, we will keep you guys feet to the fire and make sure that if this is going to be delivered, and we hope it is going to be delivered, it is delivered properly and we're aware of what's going on and that the expenditure is right and is within the budget that we have seen already. Thank you very much.
okay, so we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion passed. So moving on to agenda item 8, reports of committees. Are you happy to write those up? Yeah. Should we just go through that one more time? Agreed. And moving to item 9, recommendations of committees, and that's pages 75 to 78. SG 47/19/01/02.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm hoping the Council will support this zero tolerance policy, members of Strategy Group, when they were considering it, suggested an amendment that employees be changed to workers, which would then apply to non-employee workers. It would then be more inclusive. The policy document has been duly amended, and I would like to commend the work of the Safety Advisory Group and the Staff Alert Register Group. Pages 8 and 9 of the document set out the roles of the Executive Director. The Deputy Chief Executive, in his role as our Health and Safety Champion, believes this policy will send out a clear and important message to staff and customers.
Did you have a second for that? Would you like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to say that I second this motion. I really do believe that we should have something in place to help protect our staff. It's a shame that we need something in place, but in my day job, as I often say, the NHS sector, we have it, I have it in the police, etc., but we do need a zero tolerance.
Okay. No one speak. Can we take a vote on it then?
Agreed.
So SG 49/19/04. Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, Chairman. This concerns the conservation area proposal for Chapel Brampton. A conservation area appraisal and management plan was consulted on over a 6-week period ending in July. During that consultation, there were no responses from anybody. Historic England didn't seek any changes, and there were no responses regarding the local list candidates for Article 4 directions. At the strategy group, where we considered this and put forward this recommendation, we also passed a resolution that a specially focused consultation should take place regarding the design guide for the Cedar Hive, and that is going ahead as we speak. Therefore, the motion before Council tonight is that the proposed conservation area boundary be designated, and this supersedes the earlier one made in 2000, that the local list entries for Chapel Brampton also be agreed, and that further work be undertaken for proposed Article 4 directions for Chapel Brampton, and a further report presented to Strategy Group in due course. Okay.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I hope so.
Councillor Walker, would you like to speak?
No, thank you, Chair.
Any speakers? Can we go for a vote on that one, please?
Agreed.
Okay, move on to SG 49/19/05, and Councillor Chartman, continue.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This concerns the conservation area appraisal and management plan for Everton conservation area. We had, at a previous meeting of Strategy Group, discussed the responses to the consultation. Slightly confusing in that at the same time there was a consultation on a proposal for a new conservation area in Little Everton, and people responded to both of those at the same time. So 10 responses were received during the whole consultation period. The majority of them were supporting the proposals made. 2 respondents requested that modern properties on Bethel Lane be removed from the designation, but these suggestions haven't been taken forward. There were some queries raised regarding clarification on Article 4 directions. Those will be dealt with by a later consultation if we pass the motion before you now. And one resident, this is interesting I thought, one resident requested that the old vicarage in Everton be submitted for the local list, but there is no such identifiable property. If this is a reference to the old rectory, it's listed at grade 2 already, and therefore isn't suitable for an Article 4 list or local list. Neither Historic England nor the Archaeology section of the County Council sought any changes to the proposal, and therefore the motion before Council this evening is that the proposed changes to the Everton Conservation Area Operational and Management Plan in response to representations be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made in order to reflect the fact that the document will be in its final adopted form, that the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan for Everton be adopted as a supplementary planning document, that the proposed conservation area boundary as set out be designated, and this supersede the earlier designation made in 2000, that the local list for Everton set out in the document be agreed, and that further work be undertaken for proposed Article 4 directions, and that a further report will be presented to Strategy Group in the time.
Thank you. You have a second? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're very happy to second this, and I know that it has the support of Everton Parish Council.
Anybody like to speak? Motion go to vote. SG 49/19/06.
Yes, this concerns the Little Everton Conservation Area, which I referred to a few moments ago, Chairman. It was suggested that there be a new conservation area designated at Little Everton, which is an historic hamlet approximately a mile north of Everton village, and the whole of the hamlet should be in that conservation area. Again, as I mentioned a few moments ago, 10 responses in total were received during this and the previous consultation. It was not possible to separate views from each other. Neither Historic England nor NCC Archaeology sought any changes to the proposal, and therefore the motion before Council this evening, Chairman, is that the proposed conservation area boundary for Little Everton be designated, that the proposed changes to the conservation area appraisal and management plan in response to representations be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made reflecting the fact that this is a document in its final adopted form, that the conservation area appraisal and management plan for Little Everton be adopted as a supplementary planning document, and that the local list entries for Little Everton be agreed, and further work be carried out for the proposed Article 4 directions, and the consultation carried out and a report back to Strategy Group in due course.
Councillor Brown?
More than happy to second this one as well, Mr. Chairman. I just think it's worth noting that this conservation covers the whole of Little Everton, and there's a good reason for that. It's because Little Everton is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful villages you are ever likely to come across, and it thoroughly deserves to be conserved in its present state.
So, any... We'll go to vote then. SG 49/19/07.
Yes, this is Pittsford Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan and Designation, Chairman. There has been a consultation carried out from Pittsford, and there were a few responses, but 15 responses were received, and there was, following that, a focused consultation regarding specific proposals to include a parcel of land west of Glebe Lane and consequent changes to the draft appraisal, and that was carried out separately, as I say, as a focused consultation. There were no comments particularly referenced. 9 responses were received, but they were supportive of the proposal. So the proposal before Council this evening, Chairman, is that proposed changes to the Pittsford Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan in response to those representations be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made to the document to reflect the fact that it's in its final adopted form, that the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan for Pittsford be adopted as a supplementary planning document, that the proposed conservation area boundary as set out be designated, and that this supersedes the earlier designation made in 1990, that the local list entries be agreed, and that further work be undertaken for proposed Article 4 directions, and after consultation a report will be presented to Strategy Group in due course. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I invite Councillor Brown to come to Pittsford and equally critically.
Any other statements? Okay, go to the vote then, please.
Agreed.
SG 49/19/08, that's Councillor Charlton.
Staverton Conservation Area designation appraisal and management plan, Chairman. A consultation was carried out and no responses were received during the online survey. 2 written responses were received, but one of those simply said, "This is my name and address, please keep in touch." Historic England didn't seek any changes, there's been no contact from anybody else, and therefore the proposal before Council this evening, Chairman, is that the proposed conservation area boundary as set out be designated, and this supersedes the designation made in 1990, that the proposed changes to Staverton Conservation Area Appraisal be approved, that further minor editorial changes to the document be made reflecting the fact that the document will be in its final adopted form, that the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan for Staverton be adopted as a supplementary planning document, the local list entries for Staverton be agreed, and further work be undertaken for proposed Article 4 directions, and a further report presented to Strategy Group in due course.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Gilbert.
I'm happy to second this.
Any other speakers? Can we go to the vote then, please?
Agreed.
So SG 49/19/09.
Thank you, Chairman. Slight change of tack now. This concerns the Maidwell Withbroughton Neighbourhood Development Plan, which has been through the examination, and the examiner made some recommendations for modifications. It's good to see yet another neighbourhood development plan being brought forward to this stage, facing adoption via a referendum. I'm happy to reassure members that the making of this neighbourhood development plan is not likely to have a significant effect on a European offshore marine site. It is one of the tests that we have to apply. It was assessed against the 2012 version of the National Planning Policy Framework, which was fortunate matter of timing. We were required to make a decision by the 17th of September unless a different date could be agreed. We did seek the agreement of the parish council to an extension of time to today to allow this council meeting to make that decision rather than the strategy group, and they did agree that at the meeting, and so that is why it's come here, although it's late. So the Neighbourhood Development Plan for Maidwell and Broughton parishes is therefore recommended that it should go to referendum of the people of the neighbourhood development area. which is Maybell and Broughton Parish, and that a provisional date for that referendum is to be the 28th of November, and if more than 50% of those voting are in favour, then the neighbourhood development plan will be made. That's the proposal.
I am speaking for Councillor Parker, and as Midway is in my division as a county councillor. Yesterday I went to Midway Parish Council, and they were very happy that was in front of us. But to our amazement, another document has appeared on the radar, which is a vision for West Northamptonshire, and the proposal for the Brampton Valley Way to be reopened as a national railway line. I can tell you, for once you have a small village who has work, and you are talking about 180 dwellings. They want to have 14 new houses, and the Brampton Valley Way is essential to their well-being. And suddenly, out of nowhere, come a document that says that the Brampton Valley Way could be moved, changed for the new railway. So I can tell you, it has put a bit of damper on their enthusiasm, and you have not seen the beginning, or you might see the beginning of a revolution in my part of the world. Thank you so much.
Okay, just to clarify, you were seconding the...
I am seconding the neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Any other speakers? We'll go to the vote then, please. Okay, so SG 50/19/01, Treasury Management Annual Report 2018-19. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very straightforward one. In accordance with the regulations and codes of practice, we have to present an annual Treasury statement. Very simple exercise here for Council, simply to note this report is what we're asking for. But I would like to draw members' attention to one item on this, which is 7.4, which is in relation to additional interest. And I think this exemplifies the Treasury management strategy in the fact that in the year we actually made £204,000 more interest than we budgeted for, which I think is very good news and always helps the coffers. Thank you, Chair.
You have a second? Councillor Brown? Would you like to speak? Any other speakers? SG 50/19/02, annual review of the council tax reduction scheme 2020-2021. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. This was an interesting short debate and strategy. We had particularly Councillor Parker ask us some questions on this one and showed a great deal of insight. Essentially what we're asking for here is that option 1 of the council tax reduction scheme is the one that is adopted again for the coming year. Members remember that's the percentage level which we've had for the last couple of years now, and we found it to be an effective level and also one where we've been able to maintain an element of fairness, if you like, and balance across all taxpayers in the district. The main thing I'd like to point out in this one actually, Chair, is the item on 4.27, which actually tells you about the levels of the other 2 local authorities, which we may well be going into business within the unitary. It's interesting to note that South Northants sets theirs at 8.5, which is the minimum which they're permitted to set it at, whilst Northampton Borough sets theirs at 35%. As at 20% is, you could argue, in the middle of those. An interesting challenge we'll have if we get to go to unitary is how these will harmonise. And apart from the evidence you have before you, it's probably a very good idea not to do anything radical at the moment for these taxpayers, so that we can give them a period of reassurance at the levels we're going to be charging. That's all for that one, Chair. Thank you.
You have a second up? That's one thing. Would you like to speak? Any speakers? Councillor Brown or Rich, you'll vote.
Chair, if it were
technologically possible to simply cut and paste what I said in the last 2 years when this debate's come. It would save a little time. I have always made the point that option 1 is not actually no change. It means that the minimum that vulnerable people need to pay goes up because the council tax is up, and the council tax is going to go up at more than the change in the cost of living. People who are facing financial hardship, many of them are universal credit, or being moved to universal credit, and they have all sorts of other problems that are coming to the light at the same time. I just feel that this is wrong, that we should be looking at this in percentage terms. We're talking about people whose needs are getting greater, but it's not terribly much that you can point to of the things that this council actually does that is aimed at helping the most vulnerable, the people who have the biggest problems in society. And this is one of the areas where there is an opportunity for the council to do more. I note what you say, what has been said about the move to unitary authorities and the fact that there will need to be some harmonisation of the rates. That is surely another reason why at this stage let's actually make sure that when we come to a bargaining in terms of what is the mid position, let's actually move to a lower rate. I'm impressed that South Northants, a district that doesn't even have the advantage of a single Labour member, has got a rate of just minimum of just 8.5%. Shouldn't we be looking at what South Northants can do and thinking, well, that's the sort of council we should be, that's the sort of society we should be trying to create?
Chair, I think it's a good idea to copy and paste actually, because in a way it is a copy and paste of last year, because we've looked at all the options and we've still found the best option. I think you could argue South Northants never changed theirs, not necessarily because they're being altruistic, simply because there was an option they chose to pursue. It's going to be very interesting, I think, when we do go in, because the borough, of course, is a lot higher. But there isn't no impact on us as taxpayers, because this does cost us extra money, into that 20%. And actually the figure is over 12,000, nearly £13,000. And of course, as you know, because the way we actually the county itself has to pay for that, we actually, because we're the collection agent, then all of that gets shared across all of us as taxpayers. So I think the burden is always a problem, but I'm certainly proud of the fact that we are able to offer 20% and not 35% the borough council do. But it's a fair point, of course, and it is still an increase for people because of the percentage going back, essentially. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm aware that we have a good collection rate at this council. I was just wondering what the collection rate is of residents receiving the council tax reduction scheme. I mean, I know that I believe that we do take some people to court for non-payment, but I just wondered, if it was those people receiving that scheme, but obviously due to hardship or not. I'm also aware on the borough that yes, they do charge 35%, and their collection rate is terrible. If they followed out, 20 or even 8, so in fact they might have a lot better collection rate, which may actually be much more cost effective. So just a question really, Chair.
Chair, I think there's a lot of data laid out on the table, of course, Councillor Ryder. I think the most important thing, there's a whole range of factors that, of course, affect collection rates. I think ours always notably very positive collection rates. I think actually we can discuss the nuances of this. I think that in reality the biggest challenge we have got is when we do move into the unitary. In actual fact, the challenge of setting those at the right level for everybody, and for some people actually, there may well be a big jump there. And I think then we'll be able to reevaluate across the whole new unitary area what the challenges are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just in response to Councillor Randall's question regarding the recipients or the beneficiaries of the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, it's a very good point, and actually it's something that arose at the last meeting of Scrutiny and Improvement, where the committee was informed that actually the number of defaults on council tax and the number of final notices had actually increased over the last financial year. As a result of that, I have done some further digging by our officers, and I've asked the question of exactly how many of those final notices and how many of those defaults are being handed to beneficiaries of the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. Apparently it's actually quite difficult to collate that data. Officers are in the process of doing so, but when I have that data I'll definitely share it with Councillor Randall and Council as a whole if they so wish.
So any of the speakers? We'll go to the vote then. So on to SG 50/19, 3, 2019 and 20 revenue budget and medium-term financial plan. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. The final one for me. This is got 4 recommendations, as you can see, largely laid out for you, and again we'll discuss the strategy, of course, comprehensively. This paper, actually, at this point in the cycle, is really setting the scene before the budgeting process starts. But actually, one of the things to point out, of course, we have spoken a bit about local government reorganisation this evening. In future papers, there will be much more information about this and about the impacts and consequences and about the budgetary framework as we look forward to local government reorganisation. And of course, it's been noted tonight, there's still interesting challenges to come with parliamentary sitting with the structural change orders. But in terms of setting the scene as best we can, with both business as usual and also forward-looking, this paper lays that out for you. There's nothing in particular I want to draw to your attention that I didn't already bring up at the strategy group, and I've basically asked for the council support on those 4 items. Thank you.
Do you have a second? Councillor Osborne, would you like to speak? Any other speakers? So we'll go to the vote then. Sorry, moving on to agenda item 10. Annual report of Corporate Governance Committee. Councillor Micklewright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the absence of the Chairman of the committee and also the Deputy Chairman, I would like as a mere soldier of the committee, to review the Chairman's report. The purpose of the committee is to provide an independent assurance to the Council of the adequacy of the risk management framework and the internal control environment. I'm not going to read that whole report. It provides an independent review of the governance, risk management and control frameworks and oversees the financial reporting and annual governance processes and the work of both internal and external audit. The bulk of the work of the committee relates to matters that are wholly internal to the District Council, namely internal audit, corporate governance, risk management, other issues such as complaints process. There have been many and varied discussions in the committee over the course of the year which have delved into, at times, the small print of processes. You would expect in any organisation that there will occasionally be a wrinkle here and there, but I'm pleased to be able to confirm what the Chairman has said in his report. There are no particular issues of significance that have been unearthed by the committee, and in general the risk governance framework of the Council is a good one and operates effectively. The one area of the committee's activity that is not wholly internal to the District Council is the external audit of the Council's accounts, where we've had a change of external auditors. The 2017-18 accounts were audited by KPMG, and we've now got Ernst & Young in place for 2018-19 accounts. Unlike with the other matters, I can't report, and the Chairman hasn't reported that all is well. We have a situation where the new auditors are in place, they've taken up their contract, and they have then discovered that they do not have the sufficient staffing in place to be able to do the audit effectively, as a result of which it is delayed. I would like to emphasise that that is not in any way a failing on the procurement processes of this Council. This was a collective appointment, a collective procurement exercise done by public sector audit appointments, I think they're called, as a result of which Ernst & Young were given the audit of all of the councils in Northamptonshire. The committee were extremely concerned, and the chairman has quite rightly reflected that concern in his report, and I would draw the council's attention to Councillor Bunting's final paragraph, that the auditors were not in a position to be able to conclude the audit. We have got a paper before the committee from Ernst & Young that, to the naked eye, purports to be a final report. But if you read it carefully, it isn't. It's couched with ifs and maybes, and I presume will be coming back to the committee in due course. And we'd like to emphasise that there is nothing in anything that Ernst & Young have done or not done in the conduct of this audit which calls into doubt in any way the competence and professionalism of our finance department staff, which is second to none. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, seconder.
Chairman, thank you. I like Councillor Micklewright. Thank you for doing that report, Councillor Wright, in the absence of Councillor Bunting. I just think it's very concerning about Ernst & Young. This is across the country, it's not just us, it's actually not just Northamptonshire. I know the county council is affected by this as well. I find it quite extraordinary actually, you pitch for business and you get the business and you say I've got the staff to do the business. I don't think that's a very good line to be if you're actually auditing others. My personal view, I could be wrong. But I just find that very strange. So I just wonder what you can do actually, Chairman, for you or for the Chief Executive, what can we actually do to actually, I mean, we raise the concern, we're not the only ones, I know, but how can this be right? How can this be right? I don't understand this.
I think you're absolutely right, it can't be right, but that's
where we are.
And unfortunately, there's very little we can do to challenge that. We can express our concern, which has already been done for the chairman, but actually, because it was curved up, it's been pretty widespread nationally, it's a route. It's through that route that the complaint can go through. But I suspect if you're looking for financial reward, then that's very, very unlikely. Probably cost you a lot of money to get nowhere.
Thank you. Can I just respond to that by saying I agree wholeheartedly with what the Chief Executive has just said. This is in a way also possibly a result of the market process governing the external audit of local authorities, which has in recent years been extremely competitive to the extent that, yes, this covers Ernst & Young in relation to this county and elsewhere, but it also relates to the other firms, although we haven't had an issue with KPMG in the past. It is the other firms as well that are suffering the same sort of issue. So this is I think probably at least an England-wide problem. In terms of financial recompense, I think the Chief Executive is right. The discussion in the committee was focused more on when Ernst & Young do find a way of rounding up the appropriate staff to be able to do this, and they end up probably having to pay them overtime rates to do it, that normally the additional costs that they may incur in doing that then get passed on to this council. We should pay only the contractual amount and nothing more. They gave that undertaking, and I'm happy to pass that on to the council.
Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. This is all very annoying, and I know Order Stater has been particularly upset by this. It's quite wrong that she should be having to deal with this situation. They failed to deliver their contractual obligations, and some pecuniary award in regard to damages should be made. That's only fair. I'm also concerned that as they're having difficulty with staff, how can we be sure that any staff they send to do the work that they haven't done are adequate or properly qualified? I think this is something we should check. Thank you, Chairman.
Did you want to?
Yes, Chair. I think I will. I hear the comments that members say, and I can tell you that they're certainly echoing the thoughts that we've had, and we've certainly made representation to PSA along with many of the councils, and you're quite right, it's not just EY, but in terms of EY, they actually have in excess of 90 authorities. So we're in a quite large group where the accounts will not be signed off within the statutory deadlines. We did make the complaint to PSAA, but we opted into this along with 95% of councils up and down the country. And we're in this for 5 years, and we cannot opt out of that. And it is only the PSAA who can decide that EY are no longer our auditors. We did invite PSAA in to talk to us to express our unhappiness, and that was across the county. EY had already been having talks with them as well in terms of what they could do to move forward, and satisfied PSAA that they, whilst it was an elected position, they were making moves to get that right. And quite rightly, overall, it must be the quality of the audit and the robustness of the audit that is what drives it forward. I don't want one done in time if it's not the right audit. So quite rightly, PSAA have said that whilst we won't meet the deadlines, it's important to have the right audit. And that's what we've concentrated on with working with them.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you. Just to add to that, trying to answer Councillor Egan's query about resource. You know, we're all disappointed, but I hope you'd agree that Councillor Bunting was quite robust in his disappointment, and that was shared within the group. But we did get assurance as well from EY, having various different arms of the company that might focus on more corporate work, local authority work. They did say that more appointments have been made, and that corporate personnel will be helping out the local authority work until the end of the year, and they couldn't foresee any problems in completing the audit within a time frame that's suggested. Audrey?
Sorry, Chair, through you, if I may. The Councillor is quite right. They did say one of the issues why our accounts can't be signed off in final is actually related to the County Council, because they are the administering authority for the pension scheme, of which we use the figures in our accounts. Because their accounts have not been audited, that to all intents and purposes our audit will be largely complete within the timescales that they've said, but they can't actually sign ours off completely until the finish of the County Council's audit. Now, I received an update today because I'm sure Chief Execs were also informed. They were hoping to have the 17-18 statement of accounts signed off for almost today, really. But another issue that was actually highlighted in our own financial statements to do with pensions and the McLeod judgment. I don't propose to go into what that is now, but basically the McLeod judgment changed some of the assumptions used in the pensions calculations. We had to do that change because it was actually announced in July, which in the normal course of events wouldn't have shown in our accounts. But because the accounts are late, we had to show it in the 18-19 accounts. Well, for the County Council, what they've just received today from the National Audit Office is that because that McLeod judgment is known, they will actually have to put through those changes in the 17-18 accounts. So just as they thought they were across the finishing line, there's going to be some changes. That's going to take, because they'll have to get a pension report, that's going to take, I imagine, somewhere within a month. And then you've got the extra month for the handover from KPMG to EY. So unfortunately, I was hoping that we would be going to corporate governance in January with a final sign-off of the statement of accounts. I'm almost certain that will not be the case now because of the changes. I see some members nodding competency, but I'm aware of that. So that's an update from today.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a question on that one through you, Chair, to Audrey, about the likelihood, will that make any material difference to the County Council's finances of the actual books?
you, Chair. Truthfully, I have no idea.
Okay, fine. Just ask a question on the truth answer.
We can just have a show of hands. I think we've noted the report for in favour. Thank you. Agenda item 11, Scrutiny Improvement Committee Annual Report 2018-19. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of the comments and objectives that I've set out about to be superseded by events later in the agenda. However, I'd simply draw members' attention, I'm sure that everyone's heard the report, to the fact that we have met the objectives that I set out in my annual report last year. I'm also very proud of the work that the committee's done in being a forum where portfolio holders are held to account and questioned, and some of the outcomes of those question and answer sessions turn out to be extremely interesting and extremely productive. I would just use this opportunity to advertise the existence of scrutiny improvement and the opportunity of scrutiny improvement to members here tonight. It is the one and only opportunity that backbenchers get to put direct questions to portfolio holders in such an open and more relaxed setting. It's probably the closest thing that we have to a select committee here at Daventry District Council, and the opportunity shouldn't go unheralded by members. I'm also very pleased with the development that I instigated to effectively join the dots between scrutiny and improvement and full council. We've had a number of issues be deferred from full council back to scrutiny and improvement for further consideration, most notably T-DECL, more recently the climate emergency issue, and also the issue of youth democracy. And I hope that work continues, and Councillor Wesley's stewardship, although as someone who is with Council's approval that to go to strategy group, it will not be for me to dictate to Councillor Wesley. He'll do things his own way, and I'm sure he'll do them very, very well indeed. So if anyone has any questions, then I'll be delighted.
We have a second, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second this and also congratulate Councillor Brown on doing a superb job. He also did a superb job of managing to get this down to one page this year's summary. Mine used to be a comprehensive PowerPoint presentation. But no, this basically is because of his style. And he has really taken on board some challenges in his duration, Councillor Brown has with his team there. And I think it's a fair point, actually. I think being both the chair of that committee and also actually being a member is very character building. And actually, I don't always necessarily know if everybody understands how much hard work that is, actually. Sometimes it can be quite damn hard work simply getting everybody's working, because, of course, it is quite a time-consuming process. So congratulations to the leadership on that for Councillor Brown, and also good luck to his successor, Councillor Wesley, as we'll speak about later in the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I also like to congratulate Councillor Brown on the job he's done. I think it's any council that's going to succeed must have a good scrutiny process, an open scrutiny process, separate from the administration or the executive, and that's what's gone on in this council. And we've seen elsewhere where that hasn't happened, it can actually result in pretty bad news.
Anyone else? Okay, yeah, we just have a show of hands just to note the report and that we're in favour.
May I just respond on that?
Sorry,
Thank you very much. Thank you both, Councillor Morgan and Councillor Miller, for their very kind comments. Councillor Morgan is absolutely right that some elements of the chairmanship of S&I are very time consuming. I like to think that my report is comprehensive, albeit more concise than previous styles. And I thoroughly echo Councillor Miller's comments about good scrutiny being key to the proper and effective running of the council. And I've made similar comments at the West Northants Joint Committee, and I'll give an undertaking to this council that as we move forward with local government reorganisation, despite leaving scrutiny here, I'll continue to bang the drum for proper and effective scrutiny within West Northants Council, because I've continued to have management concerns about the role of scrutiny at the county council. It's been much slimmed down. I believe it's, although it improved in some regards, it isn't as comprehensive as it needs to be. And the leadership of the next council here in West Northamptonshire must be fearless about giving scrutiny all the powers that it needs.
So, Agenda item 12, future laws and revised terms of reference to West Joint Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. This is before you here, Council. We're the last council to agree these terms, so all the other councils understand how to agree them already. And I refer you to the appendices, appendix 2. On appendix 2, you see the current terms of reference, the existing terms, and then the proposed terms of reference. I'm not sure you had a chance to read all those, but I would say to you that there's nothing in there which should cause concern. This joint committee actually plays an important role, and we are one of the 8 councils on it. So all I want to say is on resolved item that the revised terms of reference to the joint committee set out in appendix 2 be agreed, and the necessary powers and authority delegated to the West Northamptonshire Joint Committee, subject to resolution of the number 1, that one there, authority to be delegated to the monitoring officer to accordingly amend the existing West Northamptonshire Joint Committee agreement. So I have to take questions of their own, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a second? That's all. Thank you. Would you like to speak?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Rayner?
Yeah, thank you. Only looking at item 10, and it refers to the members' allowances. So people have still been asking me, will that mean extra money that the taxpayers been paying? Will it mean that they're paying the borough district councillors and county councillors and the shadow councillors? So it's just not, I'm still not aware of how that's all going to map itself.
Councillor? Well, do you want to answer?
Councillor Brown is stepping in.
Thank you, Chairman. Within the structural change, or the draft structural change order recently approved by the Secretary of State, he's confirmed that members of the West Northants Shadow Authority will not be able to receive an additional allowance if they're in receipt of an allowance from one of the existing councils.
So we agreed on that?
Agreed.
13, reappointment to the elected members of the Independent Remuneration Panel.
Chair, it's a straightforward report. We need to have our complement of independent people on the panel to advise on members' allowances. And we've got people in place who are expiring in terms of their term, in terms of their term. We'd like to reappoint them and ask you to propose and second it.
Thank you. So, proposal? Councillor Morgan, can you second them? Councillor Richard.
Thank you, Chair. At least I'm not aware of knowing or having met any of these people. I think that in past years we have actually been given some indication of what their backgrounds are and why they are on the panel. I believe that's right, but I cannot remember it. So what I'm saying is purely about principle and not about people. I don't think it's right that if we're having something that has got to be an independent panel, that it should simply be ticked through for being for continuing its life without there being some process of reappointment. I think that the question that has just been asked by my colleague on the last agenda item makes it clear that there is concern about how is it that councillors are rewarded for the work that we do. How is that actually done? And I think it is hugely important that the remuneration panel is a body that, as far as is possible, can be a representative of our constituents about the way that things work. And I've never come across a panel that you could actually say that about. Asking for 5 people to be representative of Daventry district is not an easy task. But I just feel that in principle, if we're talking about having a body that is independent, they have got to be appointed for a sufficiently long period that they can do their job, knowing that they cannot be removed for the decisions that they actually take. Now, 18 years is quite beyond sufficiently long. I note that the report says that the panel has been refreshed. Well, it hasn't been refreshed for the last 4 years. It strikes me that in normal circumstances, this would be the time when we actually refresh it. And I would have thought it was a strong case with a panel like this. We as councillors are telling them to tell us what our allowances should be. I think that, in that sort of process, we can't have it, that we just sort of hold this thing over. Now, I am of course conscious of the position we're in. I think that normally, a panel of this nature, there should be a fixed term of office after which somebody is not eligible, or at least is not eligible for a certain period, to be on the panel again. I think this is somebody that has got to be renewed periodically, even if the periods are quite long ones. I'm aware, however, that we're in special circumstances. It may be that the people that are on the panel at the moment are going to have very little more to do if the structural change order goes through and this council ceases to exist at the end of March 2021. In these circumstances, I would fully accept that some sort of extension of existing terms would make sense. If the structural change order does not go through, and this council has got a longer life, or something else is going to happen, then I think we're in a different situation. I would therefore like to move an amendment that would extend on a temporary basis the membership of the panel until such time when it can be reviewed. That might be come up for review at the end of February of next year. That might be an appropriate time to look again. By that time, we may know whether the structural change order has gone through Parliament and whether the reorganisation is planning to go ahead as planned. If there is any change, I would have thought at that stage, then is the time to say, okay, we need to go back and refresh this body and look for people to do it in a way that our constituents can be satisfied that there is proper accountability here.
Councillor, did you just confirm, did you second that? Did you give a second on that?
No, I wasn't seconding, I was speaking against it.
I was a little confused because your hand shot up. So we'll look for a second and then we'll go to Councillor Miller. And then if we just have Simon Bailey just comment first.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We're very, very conscious of the situation we are in, the reorganisation prospect being likely. So we're conscious of not needing to do an overhaul. I mean, members who have engaged with the panel, I think they found to be a fair bunch.
Yes.
So I don't think there's a question about what they do, and I don't suggest you are questioning what they do per se. We've had refresh over the years, so 2015 there were some changes, as you can see. So I would suggest to you it's not necessary at this time. The order is likely to go through into Parliament. There will be a new panel established for the Shell Authorities purposes, so it will be limited life here anyway. So I'd have that in mind. Do take the point about trying to refresh panels as a general principle. We do like to do that, and we try to seek people from the community at large. You will appreciate it's difficult to establish is that person that representative of the community, but what we really emphasise is the independence. That is what the legislation requires for this panel to have, and that's what we try to seek. And in fact, we don't do the interviews. It's usually via the panel that do the interviews, which is panel chairman in the past. So I would suggest for now, go with this. Cover the shadow, there will be a different panel anyway.
I've got Councillor Randall and Councillor
I was going to second it, that's all.
Okay, yeah, we've got you, I think.
Second, and also support the Boris Johnson's comments.
Councillor Randall, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is this the same panel that caused some fury amongst the other councils in Northamptonshire when the panel awarded our leader and two other members a total of 24,000 for their extra work on reshape, their work on the West Northamptonshire Unitary Authority? Because if it is, where does that independence come from? It's a real concern for me, because everybody was outraged And obviously in May we did commend our leader on not taking the payment. But if it is that same panel that drummed up that amount from nowhere off their own back, well, I don't think it's very I'm for these same people to stay on the panel.
Chair. I've got the speakers before the council. I speak.
Yeah, good please. I'll speak.
So I've got Councillor Micklewright first.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I've got Councillor Micklewright to speak, and then yourself. So Councillor Micklewright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, really. Without wishing to inquire about anything that will be shared on data protection grounds, so I'm not asking about particular individuals. These 4 people, are they residents of the district? No. If they're not residents of the district, how far away are they in residence terms? And I ask because, presumably, in this presumption, the further they are away from us, the less relevant they are in terms of knowing what is key to this district in reaching a determination.
Chairman, I understand they are all residents in the district.
Okay. Councillor Organ.
Yeah, I think we've got to be careful with our narrative. Accusing the panel of not being independent is a really big charge, and you've got to have some evidence to support that. And the other thing that I really find difficult is when we politicise something that's meant to be independent. We created these panels so that we wouldn't have politicians involved in it, yet we have some of our colleagues, not only sort of benign in this group, but also with regard to sort of politicising it. You know, I think that I don't know these individuals, but what I am grateful for is that these decisions are made outside of politics, all right, and so that we then cannot be accused of having any self-interest. And I really think we've got to watch our wording when we start criticising people without the evidence. Thank you.
Okay, so before we come to you, Councillor Osborne, Councillor Ritchie, we want to know, I need clarification as to whether you're bringing forward this amendment.
I would like to put it in the form of an amendment, but I would like, in a point of order, to object to the remarks of Councillor Arder. Anybody who has worked in the field of democracy will know that the concept of independence is one that has got to be demonstrated, not one which you simply state that something is independent and it's up to others to actually challenge that independence. There's got to be something there that gives the people that are represented by this council some sort of confidence that the independence is built in. The default has got to be to question.
Chairman, I've heard the term point of order being raised several times tonight. Just to be clear about point of order, that's to identify in the eyes of the council that there's been a breach of the law or the constitution. So there's a difference of view, I understand, but I don't think we should get into the context of point of order, because what point of order means is the chairman has to hear that straight away. Yeah. And that's not right in the flow of debate. So just to be clear about positioning. That's why I made the point earlier about somebody making a personal explanation, which they do when they're invited to speak again by the chair.
Councillor Osborne.
Over the years, Chairman, it hasn't been the easiest thing to get people to stand on this panel. We've put adverts out everywhere, and it's not easy to get people. And secondly, to call, following on from Councillor Orger's point, to get an independent group and to call them not independent, I believe that's totally and utterly wrong. I believe that the comments made by the Labour member behind me were totally and utterly wrong. If he questions, or if anybody questions, the independent group, the decisions they make, and the decisions they make, and they should do something about it, law-wise, if they think it's being done wrong. That is totally horrible, and I expect that to be withdrawn. To call an independent group actually quoted because somebody got some extra remuneration for doing extra work, that is wrong. I don't know them, I've never heard of them, and I don't want to know them, but I know that what they tell us each year ought to be the expenses and councillors ought to be paid. That's what we should do, not us decide.
So, Councillor Ritchie, if we could have the wording of your amendment.
Thank you, Chair. In the existing recommendation in the paper, I would change from at the end of the third line, rather than for a further 4-year term of office, that shall be for a further period, temporary period. I know that the monitoring officer was much better at sort of sorting these things out. It's in the sense that rather that the reappointment shall be for a temporary period until, let's say, at the end of February of next year, after which the composition will be the composition of the panel will be reconsidered.
Okay. And do you have a seconder? So, okay, so we'll go to the vote on the amendment. So those for the amendment? Those against? That's lost. Okay, so okay, so we're back to the original agenda item as worded. So we'll take a vote on it. So are we voting in favour of this?
Agree.
Again? Thank you. Agenda item 14, the announcement of Conservative Group Leader and Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very straightforward. This is obviously I'm announcing my demise and my wonderful deputy leader's demise at the end of this month as leader and deputy leader. I want to say it's been a real privilege to actually lead this council for so long. I never expected it. When I first became leader at the end of August 1999, 27th of August 1999, the press release said, I thought I'd do well to last until the following April. At that time, the council was a very close council. We've been in opposition for 3.5 years, and it's great fun actually. The council, a lot of cut for us for a few years actually after that. But anyway, I was very honoured to give that position. So no way in my wildest dreams could I ever expect to be here in 2019 still as the leader. So the real reason for us going, both me and Liz, is because we're not going for unitary. We're not going to stand for unitary, therefore we think it's very, very important that this district area is represented at the leader and deputy leader level by two people who are intending to stand for unitary, or who are going to stand for unitary. And obviously it's up to the electorate to elect them, of course, because when they go into that boiling point of the West Northampton unitary with South Northampton Borough, I think it's very important to have a strong voice from this council going into that field. So I'm delighted to say that the two names I've put forward for those two roles, Councillor Auger and Councillor Brown, he said Morgan actually, Councillor Brown, are two very strong individuals who are both very, very capable, who will hold the line and represent this area, I know, 100%. You can actually trust their judgment, and you may not always agree with them, but I can tell you now that these are the right people to take this council forward, this council area forward, with our great team of officers, to represent to the best of their ability the interests of Daventry district moving into the unitary. The actual process we went through in our group, we had a number of four candidates in the end, all very capable people, and the group reached their conclusion. So it's with pleasure I can announce that the change of leader with effect from the 1st of November will be Councillor Richard Auger, and the deputy leader will be Councillor Adam Brown. Thank you.
That's noted with all, yes? So you say agreed? Agreed. Thank you.
Chairman? I'm glad they're going as well. No,
I've been saying that for years.
But we can't have a situation where they go, both of them, and nobody says anything about it. I may not be the best orator, but I'll say something about it. I came back to the council in 2002 after doing 12 years previous. And the first thing I did after a year is stand against him as group leader. You wouldn't believe that, would you? Not because I wanted to be group leader, but because I wanted a certain thing to happen, which wasn't happening at the time. I have to say, that's the point I put forward. The certain thing I wanted to happen happened from that day forth and still happens now. So, a good job in those years he's done. Not a bad, as we say in the country, Chairman, not a bad old boy at all. And also, I have to say, Councillor Griffin, she's a very, very good backup, very sensible, got a great sense of humour, and I think we get on very well. I like her coat as well. Chairman, they've both been excellent.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm always wrong. They've both been excellent members of this council and good Conservative supporters and good in their role as leaders and deputy leader. And I thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brandon.
Yes, thank you. I did put my hand up, but you saw stupid for me. Yes, I'd like to wish you all the best of luck in the future. Obviously, you know, you were leader when my mum was a councillor as well as myself. So obviously I did hear about antics within the council, and I know then how they changed over the years, and I hope that once I was elected I made your meetings a bit more interesting, because I've got a bit, you know, first one I come to I think it was 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you know, because nobody sort of questioned, there was nobody really to question or challenge anything within the papers very much. So so I hope I gave you a bit of work to do, and wishing you both all the best of luck, and I'm hoping that our leader and deputy will have a listening ear and be as let us all speak like you have when you've chaired meetings.
Councillor Organ.
Yeah, I don't want to steal Steve's thunder because he said everything, but I want to thank our Labour colleagues. We may differ in this chamber, but I hope that outside that we can at least meet together and talk together and try to resolve some issues, and I hope you'll take up an offer to meet me on a regular basis. But also, you can't go away without thanking Chris and Liz. You know, I've watched them, I've admired them. I just hope that Adam and myself can have that same rapport and that same energy. We really want to do a good job. We really want to do a good job, especially for the residents. So we will need the support of this chamber. There's no doubt, and our colleagues on the left and in the centre, and ourselves, we need to work together to ensure the residents get good services up until vesting day of the new unitary. I hope you're going to be with us on that cause, and I am looking forward to it. I am excited, even though I've left leadership a long time ago, but let's start a new chapter. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Burrell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd just like to pay tribute to Councillor Miller and Councillor Griffin, who have just been absolutely phenomenal in their roles as leader and deputy. And Councillor Miller certainly has been the most brilliant mentor to me. If I progress quickly at this council, it's entirely down to his tutelage and his influence as a leader of our Conservative group. Richard and I certainly have big boots to fill. We have a very, very important job to do as we advance towards West Northants Council, because we need to make sure that the voices of these residents here in Daventry district, not just in the rural areas but in our market town, are heard loud and clear. And just following what Councillor Randall said, we certainly had Councillor Griffin has been a very quiet and laid-back deputy. My style will be slightly different to hers, but I think I have no doubt the opposition here at this council have an immensely valuable role to play. It's often the case that they see things that we might not see, and then hopefully we can work together to find the best solution. So I congratulate Councillor Miller and Councillor Griffin on their sterling work, and I look forward to their sage advice moving forward.
Councillor Swift.
Yes, I don't know if it's time, but on our table we had the membership committees.
Well, that's the next one.
Oh, sorry, because I thought it was at the same time, because I have something to say there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Gifford. Sorry.
Yes, I'm in rather a unique position because, you know, I started back in 1999 with Councillor Miller, but then as an officer. So I worked with both of my colleagues here as an officer for a decade and as a member almost for a decade. But I'd like to thank them as a member first for, you know, mentoring myself from officer to a member and all the support, etc. they've given me over the years as a member. But also, I know, working under them as an officer, that you still get that support from yourselves as well. So I'm sure the congratulations comes from, you know, officers as well as members on wishing you well in the future.
Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chairman. I first got elected to this council in May 2002, and in July, Chris Miller said, I've got a job for you. I'm still here now, so I must have been doing something right to hold the portfolio that I have. What I would say is this, that I certainly could not have done and held this portfolio for as long as I have without the support of Councillor Miller and Councillor Griffin. They've given me tremendous support. I've enjoyed the portfolio, and I certainly wish them well in the future as a backbenchers, but also when we eventually come to unitary. I thank them greatly for the support that they've given to me.
Councillor John.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to endorse all those nice things, and thanks to Chris for his discernment in selecting me as a candidate in the first place. Thanks to Chris for the support that he's given me. Thanks to Liz for both of them for their support and understanding in my particularly difficult circumstances in recent years. And just a warning to Councillor Auger, a significant difference between this leadership role and those earlier in your career. You won't be allowed to carry a submachine gun.
Well.
Thank you.
This response, thank you much indeed, on behalf of myself and Liz. Well, thank you much indeed for those very, very kind comments. And it's very unusual, isn't it? We get kind comments like that all in one go. But we are very much appreciated. And all I'd like to say seriously is that it has been a long journey for me and Liz. We came on board in 1998. That's when we joined at the same time. Good intake that year, wasn't it? 1998. We are two of the survivors of 98, by some means or other. But and thank you also to Wendy. I remember your mum actually very well when I first came on as leader, and I like your mum actually a lot. You're very similar to her in lots of ways actually. You know that, okay? So, but I just want to say, you know, the opposition do have an important part to play. And when I first came on board, I was in opposition. The first year I was here, I was in opposition. We took control in 1999 by 2 seats, one by 5 votes, one by 3 votes. So it showed how close the council was in those days. And then obviously, 2000 we had the same 2-seat majority. And 2002 onwards, we built up this massive majority, which we held ever since. We never take it for granted. It's about the residents, and we all have our differences. We can all have our differences about what's best for residents. And what we always try to do as administration is do our very best for our residents. And I'm sure that will continue under Richard and Adam, because that's where their focus is. And so I really want to thank everyone for those lovely comments, and I should make sure on the records so I can make sure they were said. But no, seriously, it's been a real privilege, and I'm still around. So we're both around still. We're not leaving the council. And we'll be working behind the scenes. The real council meetings take place in our Conservative group meetings. That's where the real council meetings take place. So what you see on the surface, even in those days when you said meetings were short, the real debate took place in our Conservative group meetings, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that. And obviously both myself and Liz are available to the leadership if they want any help or advice any time. We're always there. And I do wish them well, and I'm sure they'll do a very good job moving forward. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to agenda item B, appointments to committees.
I just have a question at the back. We have local government where they are the leadership group, and we have the leader, 2 Mr. Wickelman, 3 Councillor Auger, So I think there must be a mistake, and also it's a political balance, and Mr. Micklewine now is not part of our conservative group. So I think we should maybe refresh that thing, or am I wrong?
No, Chairman, Councillor, not wrong. It was indicated before the meeting, actually, to me, that we made that error. And in fact, if you look at the Governance Committee listing, it also actually comes into the same label as Conservative. Yeah. We will issue a revised sheet, assume the Council conforms with these appointments, make a clear difference. In terms of political balance, I wouldn't suggest you need to worry about that per se tonight. What we are suggesting here, what's being suggested here is, this is probably on the 1st of November, but because of the by-election, which will take place on the 24th of October, we will need to come back to Council and we will rectify matters as need to be rectified, get things sorted out then more accurately. There's no significant change, as you can appreciate, with one member leaving Conservative to go independent. So I don't suggest it to be anything more dramatic, but we will rectify the presentation.
Chairman, I think there's another typo, isn't there? Page 1, Joint Committee. Shouldn't that be Councillor Auger on the Joint Committee played instead of Councillor Miller? Westmore Health Joint Committee, is that still going?
Yes, planning. Yeah. Planning. It's very
Right hand side of the first page.
This is the reorganisation. It's a matter for the leadership of the group as to what they want to do. Encourage the leaders to discuss it, and that's the indication we've got how it should be. Again, you can change it now, on whichever way you want to play it, put it forward now, or you can go to December, it's up to you.
Well, as currently the leader still, and I had that discussion with Councillor Auger, I think Councillor Auger's point was she wanted to get shit under the table, to review it and come back in December about maybe other changes, Is that right, Councillor Auger?
Yeah, but obviously, as soon as the next joint committee meets, I will be expected to be there. But what we wanted to do initially was just to stabilise, taking the burden from Adam and myself with regard to our other responsibilities, and just make sure that we were all square for the. But we know there are changes have to be made, and I'm not leader yet. I assumed that would be done in a conversation, but obviously I will be replacing Councillor Miller on that particular group. But I don't know whether he's still the leader at the moment. So
this document is with effect 1st November. Surely you should be on this 1st November. But anyway.
So it's a resolution between the members themselves, because the council confirms the appointments essentially on the back of the request of the leadership currently before us tonight. Councillor Miller is the leader. Obviously it will change after October. Up to you.
Just going to say change it.
but the next
I mean, if there's no meeting of the joint committee before the next council,
that's probably right, John.
doesn't matter at all. But if there is a meeting of the joint committee before the next council meeting, then name should be on that list, sure.
What I can advise you on is the date of the joint committee, because there hasn't been one set. No. So it doesn't help you. You choose.
I'm happy to let Richard go on instead of myself. That's going to make people happy, because it doesn't, to my mind, it's not his issue. And I think, there may not be a meeting before then. The point having been raised, I'm happy to consider it.
Okay, so if we make that change, is everybody particularly good and happy?
No, agree. Just
agree together. And agenda item 16, sorry. Appointment to outside bodies.
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Lomas is coming off the Transport Group, I think that's the case. I'm not here to actually confirm the position. But the suggestion coming forward is for Councillor Chapman to be on the
That's what the advice.
instead. If I could. Obviously, it's open to the council, other councils in the region to suggest that. But that's the conservative nominations. I think that's the position.
So if I understand what's Chairman, Councillor Lomax was still on the group, and Councillor Charlton were joined on the group. So there are two representatives from Daventry District. Well, that's brilliant.
Right, my apologies then, Chairman.
Thank you for clarity on that. So we've noted, all happy with that? Thank you. So the final item, urgent business. So there's no urgent business. So that's just business. Thank you.